For 27 years, a quiet street in Spokane, Washington held a secret. A young woman's life had ended violently. No witnesses, no suspects, and no closure. The case went cold until a single drop of blood, stored in a dusty evidence box, whispered a name no one ever expected. It was March 2nd, 1996. 23-year-old Sarah Whitmore had just left her evening shift at a local diner. Her co-workers remembered her laughter, the kind that filled a room, and the small silver locket she always wore around her neck. When Sarah didn't return home that night, her roommate assumed she'd gone out with friends. But by morning, her car was still parked behind the diner, keys still in the ignition, her purse untouched. 3 days later, hikers found her body near the edge of Riverside State Park. No footprints, no signs of robbery, just bruises, a torn blouse, and that same silver locket, now broken. Detectives were baffled. DNA samples were collected from beneath her fingernails, but in the 90s, DNA technology was primitive, and the samples were too degraded for a match. The case went cold. Over the next 2 decades, Spokane changed. Buildings rose, faces aged, and detectives retired. But Sarah's mother, Margaret, never stopped calling the department on Sarah's birthday just to ask, "Any news?" The detectives always gave the same soft reply, "We're still looking." Then, in 2023, a new generation of investigators reopened the file. The cold case unit had a new tool, genetic genealogy, the same method used to catch the Golden State Killer. They submitted the old DNA sample to a private lab. For weeks, the computer sifted through public genealogy databases, matching, filtering, eliminating. Then one morning, the screen lit up with a partial familial match to a 65-year-old schoolteacher named Donald Whitmore, Sarah's uncle. Detectives were stunned. Donald was a quiet man, a church deacon and Sarah's mother's older brother. He'd helped organize her funeral. He'd carried her casket. When detectives approached him, Donald appeared calm until they mentioned DNA. His face changed. He said that's impossible. But the DNA said otherwise. A secondary test confirmed it. A 99.8% match. It wasn't contamination. It wasn't coincidence. Donald had been at the diner that night, helping with closing repairs, something never mentioned in the original reports. When Sarah refused a ride home, something about needing space after a family argument, he followed her. The confrontation turned violent. He claimed it wasn't supposed to happen, but the evidence said otherwise. When Margaret learned the truth, she sat in silence for nearly an hour before whispering, "He was my brother, my best friend." The hardest part wasn't losing Sarah. It was realizing the monster was family. At trial, Donald pleaded guilty to manslaughter to avoid the death penalty. He was sentenced to life without parole. Before being led away, he turned to Margaret and said, "I'm sorry for everything I took." She didn't reply. For 27 years, justice slept beneath dust and silence. It wasn't technology that solved Sarah Whitmore's case. It was time, patience, and the relentless belief of a mother who refused to forget. Sometimes, the answers we seek aren't buried in darkness. They're sitting quietly at the family table. This was the Dark Diaries. Because every secret leaves a trace, and sooner or later, the past comes calling.